everyone. I am so excited to finally be sharing with you my new painting. I have been working on this, I think, since October of 2019. I actually haven't spent that much time on it altogether. I think maybe 15 hours total, but it's just been hard to find the time to focus all my energy on the painting. I was able to work on it in like small little spurts, not really spend too much time on it. That being said though, I am so thrilled with how this painting came out. I feel like I have reached a new level as an artist, and I want to kind of talk about leveling up as an artist and what goes into it, and a little bit about that and how I feel this painting accomplishes that. I think when you're an artist who is regularly trying to pump out these portfolio level pieces, that sometimes it can feel like we aren't improving, or we've kind of stagnated in our abilities and aren't really pushing ourselves to learn new things, or maybe because we're working on these high stress pieces, we are kind of burning ourselves out. So in my last video, where I had accomplished or completed my last kind of quote unquote masterpiece type painting, in the video of Thea Arachne, I let you guys know that I would be kind of taking some time to not focus on pushing out portfolio pieces or necessarily like complete works that I was going to put for sale. I was going to focus on doing studies and exploring new things. I kind of, for the first time I think in my life, painted different subject matter of studying what it's like to paint male figures or male faces or portraits. I've also spent a good bit of time studying animals and painting mostly cats. I've done a lot of cats in the last couple of months. I've also messed around with new mediums. So I've spent time with mixed media and watercolors. I've also done a lot of painting clouds and just kind of how to properly mush colors together to look like cute little vapor blobs, and sunsets, and really kind of focusing a lot on mixing paint and pushing paint around the surface in interesting ways, and kind of playing with how colors mix together and how they look near each other. And I really do think that study specifically had a lot to do with how the background of this painting came out, because I think by painting sunsets and cloudy sunsets specifically, I really got to spend a lot of time just kind of pushing paint together that I wouldn't necessarily put together, and that experience I do think kind of fed into one of my favorite parts about this painting, which is the background. So I did that. I messed around with watercolors, did a lot of unfinished watercolor pieces, just kind of messing around with them, really learning the hand of it. Watercolors are a whole new beast, and I enjoy them, but it is a completely different process and hand, and everything is just completely the opposite of what you usually would do with an oil painting. So that was interesting to kind of turn my brain on its side and play with art that way. All the while, I had these kind of ideas brewing, and instead of taking my idea and instantly putting it into like a work in progress, I took my time with the ideas and really just let them develop and evolve and come to like a complete mental vision before even considering it. Just kind of left it on the back burner while I continued pushing through some studies and basically art that wouldn't make me feel stressed. I was trying to do stress-free art for the last several months, while exploring new things. And I do think that that has been a big factor in the way that this painting took out. I basically put all that stress to rest and just enjoyed learning new things. So all the while I was doing that, I had like my ideas brewing and really took the time to develop them. Once I thought I had an idea for the mood and the position and everything, I did an extensive search for the right reference photos. I can be somebody who says, screw the reference photo, I'm just going to paint it. I'm just going to dive right in and do it because my brain's got the right thing. And sometimes that really works for me. But for this specific painting, I took my time. I found the reference photos that were perfect for what I needed. And then I did a Photoshop mock-up using all my reference photos. Sometimes I'll just kind of create a mood board and just have them all up around me and then use my brain. And while I'm painting, I put them all together. But this time I did not. I was in no rush, so I put everything into Photoshop, cut and pasted and blended, and just did a lot in Photoshop. And once I had the composition laid out the way that I liked it, then I spent even more time in Photoshop developing the color story and the palette and trying different hues and just kind of changing everything. And I came up with like, I don't know, 8 to 10 different possible variations of how I wanted the palette and color story to come to life in this painting. And in doing that, I spent a lot of time just really refining what I wanted out of this painting. And once I was finally good with that part, and making sure that the Photoshop mock-up was what I wanted composition-wise, and the palette was there, the mood was there, and I've distorted everything the way I needed to, then I put it to actually starting to paint. So it took a lot of extra steps with this painting, and in spending so much time working on things that I wouldn't necessarily work on, I was able to bring a lot of that information to this painting in more refined ways than I think I've ever been able to do before. I also think that if I had not taken the time to really map out what it is I wanted to do with all the Photoshop mock-ups and finding the right reference photos, if I had just dove into this painting head first, like I tend to do often, I think I would have gotten a little lost and frustrated because there are so many elements to this painting. We've got the dried flowers, we've got the books, we've got the writing on the books, we've got the candle, we have all of her tattoos, we have her glasses, we have her hair. There were just so many different elements to this painting that had I not taken the time to plan the composition, plan the color palette, then I do think that it was very likely that I would have just dove in, thought I would have been like on point, and then at some point just being like, whoa, what have I gotten myself into? And gotten lost and jarbled along the way. So I think there's something really amazing about taking the time to plan everything in advance and plot it out. And I do think that was a big part of why this painting ended up being, I feel, is such a successful painting for me. So just that's a little bit about what I've done to level up and what kind of fed into this return to, I guess, quote-unquote masterpiece style paintings from me. And it really just kind of goes to show how important it is to take the time to practice. Again, I think sometimes we get so lost and caught up in trying to always put out something that's going to go into our portfolio that we're not actually taking the time to learn something new. And that is so important to continue your growth as an artist, is really taking the time, stepping out of your comfort zone. Like, I usually paint portraits, but I spent so much time painting landscapes and skyscapes and pet portraits and portraits of men, and things that I wouldn't normally do, I did. And then when I came back to ready to finally do something so big and with so many elements to it, I had all this new knowledge that I didn't even know what was going to translate to this piece, but I ended up coming back confident and refreshed, and with like a really clear vision of what it is I wanted to do with my art going forward. So I really, again, it's super important to take the time to try new things as an artist, and do it without the stress of trying to create something that's going to be your next portfolio piece or your next masterpiece or the next thing that you're going to sell for buku bucks. It's important to do the kind of throwaway pieces there where we don't stress ourselves out to the point that we are trying to make everything perfect. We are able to take the time to swallow and digest the new information and the practice that we're doing without, spoiling it by trying to turn everything into some sort of monetary piece. So I guess in summation of everything I just said, the 3 key takeaways from this video that I want you guys to have in how to level up as an artist, or at least, what worked for me. The first is turn the camera off and study, practice, do something that isn't your forte. Like for me, I really focus on portraits, but I spent my time doing something completely different. And I think that is really a big part of kind of getting out of my own head, and because it's not something that I pride myself on doing really well, it's something that I know I'm kind of not great at. So I'm allowing myself to kind of fail at it, and I think in that it ends up being kind of a great strategy for curing artist block or recuperating from artist burnout. And in the end, all practice is good practice. So you might not even know it, but the things that you're gaining from doing that practice is going to actually inform your hand and inform you how to paint something you are good at better. You might find a new technique to apply to something, and that ends up being kind of the most valuable thing that you get from doing these studies, is you find information that you can cross between different things that you create. The second biggest one is plan your paintings, especially if you've got a really great idea in mind. I think it's important not to rush it. Take your time. Make sure that you've got a really solid idea of what it is you're jumping into. I think there is a time and place for painting on the fly and jumping in blind and kind of seeing where the painting takes you. But if you've got something in your brain that you really want to create and it's a very specific thing, I think it's important to plan so that you've got yourself a little guidebook or a little map that you've created, and you don't get lost along the way and in the end are frustrated and disappointed with your work. And the final thing about leveling up as an artist is don't stress it. I think a lot of times, for me specifically, I get stressed out when I feel stagnant, and then I end up letting that stress affect my painting and my work. And I think everyone always says, artists are tortured souls. I don't believe that. I think the best artists, or when I do my best work, is when I'm happy. And I think happy artists do put out good work. And I think letting yourself get caught up in the stress of performing or the stress of improving can really be the biggest problem or detriment to putting out good work or being happy with your progress or even making progress. So that kind of wraps up my video. I hope you liked it. I hope you like this painting. It is really something I'm so proud of, and I think is really going to kind of set me off into a new direction in my art where it's a little bit more refined, with a real strong mood and maybe some more structured elements. Thank you guys so much for watching. This painting will be available in my shop for sale, as well as I'm sure I will be making prints. I would love to be involved in some commission work with this kind of style. So if you've got a portrait or a picture of you with some elements you want me to add and you'd like to commission me, that is definitely something that I am interested in being involved in. So go ahead and send me an email or find a way to get a hold of me on Facebook or Instagram. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I got more stuff in the works coming out soon. I always say that and then it's months. Anyway, have a great day, night, afternoon, wherever it is that you are, and see you later. Bye.